Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Seeds of Liberty podcast, episode 19. So before we get into anything, we're going to go with Jeremy for the BIPCOT license.
Yes, the Seeds of Liberty podcast is covered by the BIPCOT no-gov license. This allows for reuse by anyone except for governments and the agents thereof. You can find more information about this at bipcot.org.
Yay!
Yep. So Dave's too excited about BIPCOT. So before we get into it, we're just going to let everyone know you want to follow us. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, iTunes, and Stitcher, and you can find all that on theseedsofliberty.com. So today we're going to talk...
my Tinder account. Yep, all of those.
Yeah.
I was kidding.
That's just for Dave.
I am not single, ladies. I'm taken.
Darn it.
Dave is in high demand. So today we have Adrian Parks, who's going to be joining us for the conversation. He's a former Marine and a voluntarist. He runs the Voluntarist Ministry Facebook group, and we're going to be talking about, in light of the recent events unfolding in Greece and China and Puerto Rico, the very surprising, although not
I think
so
it's
surprising,
Puerto Rico, isn't it?
Well, we're
I mean, you're
making this-
Spanish, Danilo.
We're making this
You
understandable
have
for the
no,
English for the
you have
English
no
folks.
excuses here. Say it right, okay?
Okay. Puerto Rico, Grecia,
There we go.
y China.
Wait, actually, I'd rather hear Dave say it with that.
Puerto Rico.
See,
Mamacino.
you can roll your R's. What are you talking about?
Puerto Rico. Hermamacita.
No, we're not playing soccer. We're not playing soccer, Dave. No.
Goal. Yeah. Ronaldo. Goal.
So we're gonna do a talk about economic collapse, wealth transfer, currency crisis, the fun stuff, hyperinflation, and and what might happen as a result of that, and what might that transition look like, and what can we do to lessen the pain that many people expect to receive as a result of that transition. That is hyper sensationalized by people like what's the guy's name? The shock jock. I'm forgetting now.
Alex Jones.
Alex Jones, right? Sorry, blank out. Alex Jones and
porn,
Glenn
doom
Beck.
porn.
There you go, doom porn.
The Bohemian Grove and Jesse Ventura and hold on, we got Jesse here.
So if you hear the words,
I'm Jesse the Body Ventura.
if you hear the words globalists and
I was governor
technocrats
of Minnesota.
That's a good. So if you hear those terms, please change the YouTube channel because you're listening to the wrong person.
According to Alex Jones, the sky has been falling forever.
Right.
The world's gonna end. Buy some of my food.
Yeah, Bohemian Grove. Buy food.
Although interestingly enough, I was talking to what's the guy's name, Richard Heathen. He made the documentary Hidden Influence, pretty interesting documentary, and he likes Alex Jones a lot. And one thing that he said was kind of interesting to me was that even though he is all about doom porn and fear and that kind of stuff, fear mongering. He's a capitalist in the sense that he has capitalized on the demand of people wanting to hear that, and he has making a lot of money as a result. Like he's made a successful business out of that.
He had like 1 million subscribers at one point. So
he's
doing something right.
He's a great success.
Yeah, he's done a lot. He's done a lot better than most ANCAPs. That's a thing you hear a lot. That there's not a lot. I've heard people lamenting that, or the people that consider themselves like ANCOMs and stuff will say that there's none of you are very successful. You're not very good at this ANCAP thing, are you? Because a lot of people look at somebody like Larkin, who's always who's always asking for money, trying to get people to help
I'm on the side of the
fix
road.
his car.
I need help.
Yeah,
Send to my
because
website.
I mean, you say at the end of every one of our shows, about the donations and stuff. It's not it's hard to make a lot of money doing this game. So yes, absolutely. In that aspect, Alex Jones is an excellent capitalist. He is in all sense of the words, like you were saying, not just in the monetary sense, but he has capitalized on the market.
Yeah, he's destroyed that niche market for, I guess we could continually call it doom porn, but he has definitely
Well, no, him and Beck rival each other. You know, they go back and forth.
I don't know if you
They're
could put Alex
slightly
Jones
different.
and Beck in the same category, but
Yeah, I didn't used to think so either, because like we were actually talking about this before the show, that I was a Danilo. I think you asked me that. You know, when I got into all this, I was more of a Beck guy than an Alex Jones guy. A lot of people go the Alex Jones route first, and you know, you get all crazy and stuff. And then I stepped back and I looked at the two of them. I said, yeah, there's a lot of similarities there. And I'm not even sure their feud is real. You know, I wouldn't put it past people like that to have, you know, that just made from
that's
ratings
small
on either
fries.
side.
What is Glenn Beck makes like 20 million a year? So
How much do you think Jones brings?
not 20 million a year.
He's got his own network too. You know, he's got the news stuff. He's got, you know, and he sells a lot of, you know, I'm sure he gets a pretty penny for commissions for all those companies that aren't his, that he hawks all the time. And I wouldn't be surprised that if Jones is somewhere in that territory too.
I mean, I mean, we're not
There's
saying
money.
we're not,
There's money in fear. That's the same reason.
I guess we should do that. We should start selling fear. But that's what the governments do. So
yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. Just like the same thing as the state. They, you know, that's how they stay in business. They sell fear, and they get people to give them money voluntarily.
so before we get into everything, Adrian, tell these guys the hand story that you told me about putting your hand on the tank.
That was back in 1991, after we had freed Kuwait from the grip of the Iraqis. You know, it's funny because we started out going sightseeing, you know, or souvenir hunting. That's what it was. We would go souvenir hunting, and the orders came down from up above saying, you know, you cannot go souvenir hunting anymore. However, you can go sightseeing. So it's just a matter of what you asked to go do. So we would go sightseeing because they were booby trapping bunkers and stuff like that. And a couple of guys apparently got blown up in some booby trapped bunkers. So they said, you know, no more souvenir hunting. And so we're driving around. I had a couple of lance corporals in the back of my Humvee and a gunny who came along with me, and we went and found a dead T-72 tank. It was up on a sand berm, and it was kind of odd because it was on the outside of a huge crater from what was described to me at the time as a daisy cutter, which I didn't understand the reference at that point, but it was an old Vietnam reference as a daisy cutter, 15-ton bomb. And so there's this huge crater, and there was a path around up to this where this tank was buried up to its turret. And it was a dead T-72 tank, apparently killed by an M1A1 Abrams tank from our forces, and they used depleted uranium rounds. At this point in 1991, we weren't told about the dangers of depleted uranium or anything like that. But I had a little 110 camera. You'd buy these little disposable cameras, and some of my family would ship them over to me to take pictures. So I had this 110 camera. I handed it to the gunny, and I said, "Hey, gunny, take a picture of me on this tank." So I stood on top of the tank, and I don't know what overcame me, but I took off my glove. I had some gloves on. I took off my glove, and I touched the turret of the tank. And I posed for a picture. And the gunny said, "Hey, you might want to take your hand off of that turret." So I did. I said, "Why?" He says, "Well, you never know." So it's almost as if he knew but wasn't going to tell me. But for 10 years after that, every 6 months, the skin on my hand would peel. It would just peel off. The first 4 or 5 layers of skin would just peel off like it had been sunburned. Yeah. And, you know, it was just a strange little happening there. And I didn't put 2 and 2 together for years. And then, you know, then information about DU came out, and I put 2 and 2 together, said, wow. But, you know, my wife witnessed it. It stopped happening in about 2001 was the last time I had an outbreak on my hand where it started peeling. It doesn't peel anymore though, you know. But yeah, for 10 years, every 6 months, like clockwork, it peeled.
Just for resting your hand for like 30 seconds or less. That's
not even that.
Wow.
Maybe 10 seconds.
Wow.
Good thing you didn't put your ball sack on it.
No, we laugh, but I've seen some of the pictures that have come back from stuff like that. That's totally within the realm of reason, actually.
Yeah.
Somebody who gets a little too excited about, wow.
Look,
That's pretty crazy, man.
Yeah, he was telling me this story. He came by the house one day on his way back to where he lives, and I was like, "What the? That is insane. DU is that crazy?"
yeah, it is.
And
It's such a hard metal. They use it for armor piercing because it's such a hard metal, but it's also radioactive. But it's depleted. It's uranium that is depleted and past its half-life, of course. Thereafter called depleted. So it is strong enough of a metal to actually pierce the armor. So the T-72 tank that I was standing on, we opened up the top of the tank and looked down inside, and there were burned bodies of the Iraqi soldiers that were commanding the tank. And it was just a mess in there. So,
that's
pretty
insane.
nasty stuff. Yeah.
Well, that was fun. In story time with Adrian.
Good night.
Totally on
Good night,
topic, too.
children.
Don't touch radioactive stuff.
Right. Or anything touched by it.
So on that note, yeah, maybe we'll start off with Adrian. So Adrian, what would you say to somebody, who is just, let's say, getting into understanding what government is and what fiat currency is, what central banks do, and then you tell them, that it's self-destructive, it's, robs from the, the middle class and the poor, and ultimately ends in a bust and, wealth transfer, and then they get scared, right? And so what would you say to them they're afraid of that transitionary period? Like, what might happen, the chaos that they're afraid of?
Well, to anybody, whenever fiat currency is something you want to look into, obviously, to understand what it is, and really look it up. Just research it as much as you can, not just a Google search, but then find something on Google search and then research it. Okay, search it out and dig further and further and find out what fiat currency really is. Understand what the central banks of each nation do, and how, and if you can, discover how exactly the government's involvement in what they do affects you, and what backs up the fiat currency. Like, it used to be gold. We used to work on the gold standard, but we no longer do for many years now. So, what is the worth of a piece of paper? If I hold up and I've got one here, a $10 bill. What's the worth of that? What is the worth of this piece of paper? It's a piece of paper. It's got drawings on it and writing, and it's got a little piece in it. What is the worth of that? So it is whatever the government says it is, okay, and what they dictate. But they work with the central banks, and you also want to work. They work with the World Bank and the IMF to decide almost arbitrarily what currencies are worth worldwide, and they work on this world market of things. When that starts to fail, you have to decide, well, what is this worth now? When it's failed, what is it worth now? It's a piece of paper. You can burn it. If you put enough of them together, you can wear it. But,
Wallpaper.
I mean, what was it in Germany? You'd have to have a whole wheelbarrow full of cash to buy a loaf of bread.
Right. So,
yeah, that's
what is
insane.
it worth? Well, you have to consider, what is your labor worth? What is your time worth? What is it worth to a majority of people, or a small minority of people who are willing to trade their goods or services with yours? So the idea behind money is really interesting, because we call them bucks, which is from buckskins, which is how the Native Americans used to trade in buckskins. And you could, if you killed enough deer, you could come up with enough buckskins, and you'd have more bucks than the next Native American. So you'd be wealthier than he was. But that was because you put forth the labor to kill the deer and harvest the buckskin. But in today's society, we seem to be on what, and I say the word arbitrarily often when discussing this, because it is arbitrary. Somebody somewhere else is waking up tomorrow morning and deciding what our currency is worth on the world market. okay, and you have nothing to do with it. You have no control over it. If you're watching this video, you have no say in the matter. So,
Well, Ben Bernanke has been known to watch our show, so I don't know.
Ben Bernanke?
Yeah, I believe that's the 1500th subscriber.
Yes, I believe so.
You know, they're arbitrarily deciding what your earnings are worth on the market. You know, there are several ways of looking at monetary exchange, and I'm no big economist, but I do have a base understanding of, you know, my time is tradable because of what options I have for work. Okay, what I can do for other people. You know, you can obviously trade your time for money, which is how we trade now, or you might go to a neighbor and say, you know, I'll mow your lawn if you'll trade me some food. Okay, I mean, trading time for time in that sense. There are several options these days, one of which is rising now, and I need to get into it a little bit better, is Bitcoin. You know, another digital currency that
Just bought a whole one. I normally don't buy a whole one, but I just bought one 2-3 days ago.
Oh my
yeah,
god.
I'm considering it myself now. You know, in the whole.
I've got like 3, but I was like, you know what? This is getting too. It just went from 220 to 300 in like a month,
Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
and
It's-
I was
it's
gonna
getting
buy. I want to get to 10 Bitcoin and kind of sit on it.
But see, here's the funny thing: is that you're relating that, and that's relating it to U.S. dollars.
Yeah. There's no telling
does
what the
that
value is. Yeah, because there's
What does that mean? That it went from 220 to 300 in the span of a month? What that means is not that Bitcoin is raising in value so much as that the dollar is lowering in value.
Yeah.
That must be considered, and that's
Yeah, you
dangerous
nailed it.
with fiat currency. You know, we talk, even though we're you know, free-minded, free thinkers, and we're trying to think outside of that paradigm, we still can't help but relate to things with that kind of talk.
I'm kidding.
You just said it. You know, you said it went from 220 to 300 in a month.
Well, yeah, because that's the only currency I have in my possession outside of a few bullets and some silver to compare it to. If I had euros, if I had a pile of euros, I would be comparing. I would say it went from this many euros to that many euros. So,
Right.
Oh yeah.
So
But
you know,
it's
you're talking in your own fiat currency. Which
So, like,
in
if
this
the dollar
case-
collapses and let's say one Bitcoin's worth $500 million, just I'm gonna go way up. All right, that doesn't mean you're automatically now worth $500 million because you have one Bitcoin. That means that $500 million is not worth what it used to be.
right. It goes
Like,
by-
It doesn't matter the
You would
currency. It matters
want- you would
it matters
want-
what it can buy.
You would want
Yes.
one Bitcoin or $1 buying like 1,000 Bitcoins. That's what you'd
So
want.
when talking about Bitcoin, you want to ask yourself, how much Bitcoin would you accept for your trade, whatever your job is in the job market today? How much Bitcoin would you accept per hour?
I would probably
Don't-
at least
try
want
not to
one
compare
Bitcoin
it
a day
to dollars,
because that's probably
because the
about what I'm
dollar is
making.
lowering. You know, and that's what I'm saying about fiat currency. When you look into the fiat currency, the U.S. dollar is a fiat currency. You want to look into what controls are there on the U.S. dollar. You want to see who is controlling the value of the U.S. dollar and look into how inflation affects it. You know, I mean, I remember, and I'm 43 years old now, I'm about to turn 44. When I was 16, the minimum wage was $3.35 an hour. At the age of 17, as a cook, before I joined the Marine Corps, I was making $8.75 an hour as a cook at the age of 17, which was over twice minimum wage. Double minimum wage would have been $6.70. I was making almost 3 times minimum wage in 1989 as a cook, okay, at a famous restaurant. And I was the lead
Was this
cook.
was this was this
It wasn't
Sneaky.
McDonald's, right?
It wasn't Sneaky
not
Pete's famous hot dogs, was it?
No, it was not. It was a famous burger restaurant designed after Hard Rock cafes. It was called Rockola Cafe.
Oh.
Nice.
So Rockola Cafe, I was the head cook during the day on the grill, and I was making $8.75 an hour. So I was making almost 3 times minimum wage. Now let's equate that to today's dollars. Minimum wage is now $7.25. Do you think you're going to walk into a restaurant and find somebody making $21 an hour? No.
No.
So the currency has been devalued, and that's the rate of inflation. Okay, they're now starting people out at less than I was making 20 some years ago, 27 years ago.
Well, yeah, that's why one of my favorite internet memes has always been that the one with the 5 quarters on it and says, you know, back in what was it, 65 or whatever, it was $1.25 was the minimum wage, but they were paid. You know, you could have gotten, you know, 5 silver quarters to pay, you know, to pay that, and now that amount of silver today is worth, well, now it's only worth what? What's it still hovering at 15 an ounce, but still, you know,
around 15, yeah.
it's still, yeah, even at that low mark, it's still, you know, versus what $1.25 bought then and now, you know, it's like, you can see it if you actually look, but most people don't look, because that's the thing. Most people don't they look at dollars in their pocket. And, you know, you were saying to Dave about how to make that, you know, how you're equating it in dollars. Well, yeah, because that's how most people understand it. That's all their mind can process, because economics was always, you know, it was dubbed the dismal science, and I've always thought that was partially by design, because it was to, you know, keep people away from thinking that it was important. It's just like, oh, just let the experts handle it. You know, that's why the Austrians have gotten ridiculed forever, because they're the only one that consistently can predict and also explains after the fact why things happened. But there's everybody else just goes, oh, you know, the Keynesians, they know what they're doing. We're just going to keep following them. So yeah, it's
we just lost our subscriber. Damn it!
It was John Maynard Keynes.
Sorry.
No,
Ben.
it was Ben Bernanke.
Sorry, Ben. Well, he doesn't matter anymore. Anyway, I mean,
Ben, we love you, buddy.
It's okay. We still got Janet Yellen. Come on.
I was gonna say if she's still watching, we're okay.
Right.
But yeah, most people don't think of those terms because they were taught a dollar. You know, because like you said, what is this? You know, you were asking that question. You know, if you ask somebody, what is this worth? What is this piece of paper worth? The only answer they're going to be able to come up with is $10. It's worth $10. Well, what does that mean?
Right, exactly.
Well, it means it's $10. It means it's what if I had $5, I'd have less of it. But exactly, that's what it comes down to. Because I was like that. I had no idea when I first started studying economics 3 or 4 years ago. I was like that was my approach to it. That's all I really knew. Like,
I have a marker. I can draw another 0 on it. It'd be worth 100.
I knew gold and silver had some kind of value, but outside of that, I was just like, $1 is $1. That's what it is. Like, you know.
Jeremy, gold is just for jewelry. Everybody knows that. Right,
God, you want to know something that'll piss you off? 1 ounce of gold in 1964 was $35. It's $1,100 now.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was that low, but I mean, even as far back as like '99 and stuff, it was still like around only $400 or something, right? I think 400, 500 bucks.
Yeah. If people don't think the dollar's collapsing, they're losing their fucking mind.
99 gold was like 250, something like that.
Oh, okay.
It went down,
okay.
yeah. But
well, when you print $7 trillion to pay for a war in Afghanistan and Iraq, you're.
You guys seen that video I shared on Facebook where the guy's walking around offering 10 ounces of silver?
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say the Mark
Dice. Yeah.
Mark Dice. That's who it is. Yeah, Mark Dice.
You just stole my thunder, Adrian.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just saw that video just a couple days ago, and I was absolutely amazed. I was amazed that these people were not snatching up the silver bar.
He's got so many videos like that, though.
I haven't seen the new one. What was this for? Versus a chocolate bar? Was that?
Hershey's chocolate bar. He was like, "It's your lucky day."
And then when they pick the chocolate bar and they're walking away, he's like, "Who needs silver? You probably I don't need silver. Why do you need silver?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "I can't." And they're like, "I can't eat silver. Why do I need silver?"
I looked it up right then, and the bar of silver he was holding was worth $155. So you can have a 60-cent chocolate bar or $155 bar of silver.
Well, actually, in fairness, due to inflation, candy bars are like $2 these days. I think, at least around me. But still, your point is still valid. Yes, absolutely. But yeah, he's done that before. We've talked about we talked about one of his other videos before where he had the gold coin.
Gold, Canadian maple leaf, 1 ounce.
Yeah, and he said he was offering it for what, $50, I think.
No. It was he said because it says 50 Canadian dollars, right? And so
Oh
he's
yeah,
like, I,
25.
I'm trying to get rid of this gold coin, 1 ounce gold coin, and I'm trying to give it away for $25.
That's what it was.
So
Yeah.
if you can spare $25, and nobody's like, nah, sorry, I don't have 25. It's like,
Wow.
it's a real gold coin. And he's standing in front of a precious metal shop, like, it's right there. We can go in and verify. Nah, it's okay. I don't have time. He's like, you probably have too much gold at home. Yeah, I got too much gold at home. I don't need it.
I would have been like, "Do you have any more that I can buy at $25?"
Yeah, right.
How
But-
many
but-
can I buy?
Yeah, but you really have to imagine how
I
how
think he
small
edits out
percentage of-
people like us that he runs into, because I would have been like, "That silver bar,
Oh,
bye,
yeah,
thank you. I don't
he
want to
has
talk
to.
to you anymore, Market Dice."
Yeah. Somebody like us comes. He's like, all right, stop recording the camera. All right.
No, he would have to, like all those videos he does. I mean, they're funny as hell. Like the ones where the one where he goes out and asks about the 4th of July, like why are we celebrating this? What is like those ones where the people are like,
Well,
who
it's
they get
because
their
the North
independence
won
from?
the war, right?
China. Yeah, some people answer the Civil War. I've heard people say China before. Who are we celebrating our independence from? I think there was one where somebody said Canada, and I was like,
Who are we celebrating our dependence?
Oh,
Yeah, he's like the master. That and then he went to a taco shop again, like trying to take his gold coin. Can I use this here to buy a taco? He's like, no, sorry, we only accept dollars.
Wow.
Right. Yeah, it's really yeah, but you have to realize though the extreme minority of people that actually understand precious metals and economics, and in that sense, you can understand how much work like we have to do in helping people to understand this stuff because like what you're saying, Adrian, was it's a good point. Like it's really not worth anything. And actually, you can even argue that before it was printed, the paper actually did have worth. It was worth something, right? But when they printed on, now it's worth even less because it's arbitrary and it's mandated, it's by government force, and therefore it is by definition worthless, right?
Yeah,
the
there was
paper before the ink does have worth.
There was a time in Germany that it was more efficient to burn your money instead of going to pay with that money to buy lumber to burn.
Yeah,
Well,
the Weimar hyperinflation. Yeah, right. I think 19 what was it? This 1919,
20s.
1919, 1 ounce of gold was equal to 100 German marks, and then you had the hyperinflation of the Weimar Republic, and 1924, just 5 years later, 1 ounce of gold was equal to 100 trillion German marks. All right, and then at that time, gold was so valuable that the wealth that's like at the peak of the wealth transfer. That's all the wealth transferred to the physical, tangible assets, right, away from fiat currency. So at that time, 25 ounces of gold could purchase one block of commercial real estate in Germany, in Weimar Republic, Germany.
I was reading somewhere it was so bad you could buy like entire city blocks for 2 ounces of silver.
No, I don't think. Well, so just imagine, like in Manhattan, how much one block of commercial real estate costs, right? And you can kind of get an idea.
Billions.
Yeah, you can kind of get an idea of how, it's not even how valuable it's overvalued, right? It's like the cat bounce effect. It's like that's not what it should be normally. That's what it has exceeded its normal value because it's been so suppressed for so long that it has to exceed the normal valuation to achieve parity once again, right? Until it gets to normal, and of course central bank comes out again, does the same thing, so it never is allowed to achieve parity, right? So it's always meddled with and intervened.
The problem with all this, the Greece and Puerto Rico and America right now and China and everybody is they're not allowing the market to correct itself. The government is not allowing that to happen because so many people are so tied in fascistically to the government. They're like, hey, I don't want to lose all my money. You've got to do something to fix this, all the stock market and all that. And so what the government does is they jack all of the interest rates really low to like 2 to 3% when they should be at like 23, 24%. Like
2 to 3, aren't they still a negative at this point?
yeah, they're negative, but I was being general.
Generous. Yeah.
Like interest rates in the United States should be at about 23% right now. And everybody was like, oh, it was so bad when Jimmy Carter was president and all this. Well, he actually jacked their interest rates up, and it was harder to get money because they were overprinting, and because of 1964 going off of the gold standard. Well, the fake gold standard, it was already off when FDR was
Quasi,
president.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's the third.
so you have this the government is doing price control and all this on money, which is what happens. So they inflate more than they drop the when you drop the interest rate and inflate your currency, you're going to have a collapse. That's Rome did it. Every other empire that has failed has done exactly that same thing with their currency. That's usually the telltale sign of a dying empire. But now what's weird is you have all these countries are doing. Greece is just the canary in the coal mine, right?
Wow.
It-
I think. Well, yeah. I guess they're the first bigger one. Cyprus last year was it last
Okay,
year or 2 years
Cyprus.
ago?
Cyprus
No,
is
but
the
I think you're right. Greece is a bigger.
Greece is like the
most people heard
first world
Cyprus, like,
country.
what the hell-
Yeah.
And what's amazing is Greece is not the most indebted nation in the world.
No,
By
United
far.
States is.
By far. No. Japan is.
Yeah,
It's like
Japan's-
number three. Number 3 is U.S. Number 2 is Spain. Number 1 is Japan.
Yeah,
by
Japan's
far.
Japan's still really messed up.
Japan.
Well, a funny story about Japan, I'll say, is to keep their value of their currency, America buys, each year they buy like somewhere around $1 trillion, whatever they use over there, yen or whatever it is.
Hence part of their large debt.
Yeah, exactly. They buy all that currency and they keep the price down, or the prices stable in Japan. Otherwise, to rent a closet or to rent an apartment the size of a closet, it would cost you more money than you can make in a lifetime.
Yeah. Well.
So
Well, I asked a particular question at this point, and it just came to mind. You talk about being in debt. These countries are in debt, but the ultimate question I think that needs to be asked at every time someone has this conversation is, who are they indebted to?
well, the central
yeah.
bankers.
Right,
Yeah.
the central bankers. Now, who is the central bank? Who are they? Who are
I
these
mean, not to
people
go
who became
tinfoil hat, but most of them are controlled by a Rothschild.
the Rothschilds?
Yeah.
What the Rothschilds set up. Yes, that's right.
Rothschilds, the Morgans, all those.
Exactly.
Happy folks.
And a
Rockefellers.
lot of people say, "Oh, here comes the tinfoil hat stuff." Well, it's not anything about the tinfoil hat. Okay, it's about facts.
Yeah,
Who declared this system as and you got to go back and look at the Battle of Waterloo, and do your research on Mayor Amschel Bauer. His last name was Bauer, and he changed his last name to Rothschild. Okay, and you look at what Mayor Amschel Bauer, aka Rothschild, did after or concerning the Battle of Waterloo, and find out what he accomplished and how he set things up. Look at his history, and you'll understand the history of these banks that have now got so much control over these nations through debt. I dare say, and I know this is going to sound a little kooky to some people, but I dare say that at some point, the only way we're going to get out of this is to tell those guys to take a flying leap. You take your debt and you get out of our country, or you get out of our area, and you leave us the hell alone.
Well, you have socialism being the opiate of the masses. Oh, free stuff, free stuff, free stuff. And you have these governments they tie in with the central banks that come in. I mean, the only 2 countries right now that don't have a bona fide central bank are Iran and North Korea.
In Cuba.
No. Cuba has their own communist ran bank. So set up when they became part of the Soviet or whatever. But you look at the United States axis of evil. The top 2 on the terror list is Iran and North Korea. And Iran hasn't attacked a foreign nation in so long that it's been hundreds.
I was gonna say at least 100 years.
1739, I think, was the number.
Okay.
The last
Yeah,
country they were at war with was Iraq back in the 80s.
Yeah, and that had and the U.S. GovCo had their hands all over that too. But that's why everything's going down with them right now.
Exactly. If they had a central bank, Iran wouldn't even be mentioned.
Of course.
Correct.
That's why the neocons want to go in there and bomb the hell out of them, and that's why.
Well, they believe the propaganda.
Well, no, but they create the propaganda. What are you talking about?
Well, neocons are useful idiots.
No, I wasn't talking about the voting population.
Oh.
I was talking about the war hawks over, the ones that think they're in charge over there, those neocons. And that's why the left is trying to do, but they're claiming they're trying to do this peace deal or whatever. But even they, they're all involved because they want to pacify they want to either nuke Iran or pacify them so that they can be the next one to fall, just like it happened with Iraq and Afghanistan, where before all that BS started, those countries didn't have central banks. Now they do.
It's so easy. The formula has been so easily put upon specifically the American people. I'm sure the British people at some point back in the day, but it's an easy equation. You have propaganda against a nation that doesn't have a central bank, or that is trying to get away from their central banking. Propaganda radicalizes everybody against that nation. False flag happens. We have to go to war with that nation. That nation's ruling class gets destroyed. United States puts in a puppet government that institutes a central banking. Oh, now they're our allies. Mm-hmm. You look at Libya, every country. That's why they still are doing all these covert operations in Somalia, because Somalia won't unify under a puppet government and install a central bank.
Dave, take off your tinfoil hat.
No, it's so clear. Like, there's no tinfoil hat in this. There's no conspiracy.
They're just spreading democracy, Dave.
Oh yeah, we have to bring democracy to the poor Syrians.
All those bomb-shaped democracy gifts, right?
If you wanted to,
I had that shirt on yesterday.
If America wanted to improve the life of everybody in Syria, they would have allowed Muammar Gaddafi and all the other nations that were trying to push for the gold-backed oil currency to allow them to do that, and that would have been the richest. Those 5 countries that were going to do that would have been the richest countries in the entire planet, and the quality of life would have had to go up. You look at the UAE, the United Emirates, whatever.
Arab Emirates, yeah.
Yeah, the UAE is per capita, each person's worth like $220,000 US. Like the poor in that country are richer than like 90% of the people in the United States. So you look at Dubai, you look at all these other countries that are like, the king of Saudi goes, hey, we're not trading oil unless it's in gold. You got to give us something, or just trade us so much US dollars that.
And Janet's like, here's some paper. What do you mean? Just take some paper.
So yeah, that's.
I got paper.
There was like there's a timeline.
What number you want me to print on it?
In 2001, Saddam Hussein dropped the dollar for trading gold or oil and tried to move to gold. Right. 2004, we got a war with him.
Yep.
Then Afghanistan, they don't have any oil, but they have a lot of poppy and a lot of other they have all their stuff in their mountains and stuff. Is stuff for cell phones and all this other stuff.
Yeah, lithium and stuff like that. I think.
They were like, we're only going to trade this in gold, and they were like, whoa, well, we got to go to war with the evil guys in the caves. and then Muammar Gaddafi said, hey, what was it, 5 years ago? Said, hey, we're not. Me, 3 other countries, we're gonna go ahead and band together, and we're gonna start our own currency, and we're only gonna take in gold. All of a sudden, on TV, the news, Fox News, CNN, everywhere, Muammar Gaddafi, the world's greatest evil. He's a terror. He's been in power for 20 years, but just now we opened the closet, and there he was, the boogeyman. Oh, we gotta kill him, because they know that the minute the absolute second that oil is not traded in the U.S. dollar for those nations, not only do they become the richest nations in the world, but they suck in all the gold, because every nation runs on oil. So all these nations would be trading their oil or trading their gold for oil. They would have nothing in their coffers. Not that America has any gold in their coffers right now anyways.
And the petrodollar would collapse.
And the petrodollar would collapse, yeah. And they can't do that because, everybody's on welfare in this country, and it would be absolute chaos if everybody wasn't on welfare.
So let me just bring the conversation back to the original subject, which is what might happen during a wealth transfer or economic collapse, and would it be chaos and disorder like people like Alex Jones say, or walking on the street and talking to people and going to farmers markets and, your neighbor, maybe we should ask them. I don't know if somebody did a poll like this, but just go on these farmers markets and say, if there was no more US dollars, would you kill people? If there was no more fiat currency, would you murder your neighbor? Would you steal? Would you rape? Or would we just continue to trade and find some other medium that is not necessarily mandated by government, right? And
I
it's
suggest
completely,
beard hairs.
it's completely,
I suggest beard hairs heavily.
it's completely plausible to do that, and because Adrian, you were saying it's all about the skills. Like, what skills do you have to trade, right? Because money essentially doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter if it's gold, if it's beard hairs, if it's shells, if it's tobacco, if it's coal, copper. It doesn't matter. Those are essentially worthless, right? Because that's not what makes up the wealth of a society, right? You go on a desert island, you have all the gold and silver you want. If you have nothing to trade it with, you are poor. Right? It's not about the money, right? It's about your skills, what you can offer to people, and what you can trade with, and what you can buy with it, right? It's just a conduit to transfer value. That's all it is, right? And so it really doesn't matter what we trade, as long as we find something in common, or people just agree. Not that we have to have some kind of committee, but just people commonly agree. Okay, this is a really good medium. We'll use this, and we'll just trade. And it's not far-fetched to think that would happen without government oversight, right? And so I don't think that my farmers market vendors would kill me if we didn't have dollars. Like, why would they? Like, you develop. So the way I look at it.
Are you talking about that evil unregulated capitalism? Because without unregulated capitalism, we don't have fascism, and fascism is great.
Yeah, I know. That's the problem. But I really think that life would go on as it has been because government does not produce anything, right? Government is a parasite. Government siphons off productivity from the industrious. That's all it does. It does not add value to anything. It does not produce anything. It destroys value. It destroys the incentive to thrive, right? So therefore, people will be liberated, I think, without that parasite on their back sucking the lifeblood out of them. What do you guys think?
Well, I don't. Oh, yeah. I mean, I agree for the most part too. I actually don't think that. Not only. I mean, I also believe that life would go on, like you said, but depending on how the collapse actually happened, I could see a large section of the population not even realizing it for a while, like, because they're
out in the Hamptons and.
Well, no, that's not what I meant. I'm talking about just like in like rural towns and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not connecting with other people in like big cities or stuff like that on a regular basis, and you're just trading amongst yourselves anyway, like if you live in a smaller rural community, like you may not even know for a little while. And I'm not putting them down in any way. It's just the government doesn't affect them as much. People who live in that type of setting, like a lot of people in the Midwest, for instance, even people like in like Western Pennsylvania and parts of Ohio and stuff like that, in that part of the West,
Northern New York too.
Yeah, upstate New York, all places like that. Like even the people that don't like the government, they're just like, well, they don't really bother me because I'm out of their, I'm out of their radar, and they don't really, they don't really have effect on me. So depending on how it actually went down, I don't think people would notice for a while, and then it might just be, a situation where when it starts to click in, it's like, oh well, certain things are missing, but well, we still, exactly as like you said, life still needs to go on, so we'll just keep doing this. Yeah, and some people may continue to trade in dollars with each other anyway for a while. The people that have been preparing for this will have other things to trade, most likely. But life will have to go on. There will be people that will panic. Most likely, more people in the big cities will go through that panic stage because things start getting shut down and they don't know what to do with themselves. But other people that don't live that kind of lifestyle and maybe living somewhat self-sustainably already, yeah, exactly. Not even if they're not like hardcore preppers or whatever. If they're just a farmer who that's how they in his family, and that's how they live. They have, I mean, obviously they have like electricity and stuff like that, but everything else they're just like they do things on their own. They trade with their people in their community. So people like that will be fine. And the longer it goes on, we can only hope that people will start to realize, hey, maybe we don't need all this stuff because we're getting along just fine here. And and new markets will spring up, and if it becomes a matter of a need for something to exchange readily, where where a large group of people want to agree on something, people can figure that out. Somebody else can go to hold of a printing press and say, okay, we're going to print this and we're going to attach it to gold again, or silver, or whatever it is. Or people who already have gold and silver or other precious metals may decide to trade in that.
Have you?
We talk. What's that?
No, I was going to say, have you guys heard of those local currencies like Ithaca hours and
Yes.
mountain hours and all this kind of stuff? You heard of that?
We actually had one. We almost had one here on Long Island. My friend Gigi, who's actually now leaving us, she's moving off to Florida. Finally, she's getting out of here. But she was running for the Libertarian Party for a state senator the past couple of years. She's almost there as an anarchist, but she refuses to let go. But she had actually created a currency for Long Island. And had a bunch of it printed, and because she was part of the Liberty movement, she was connected with Ron Paul a lot, and she had heard these stories of other people doing it, and she's like, this is great, I want to do this here. So it got set up, but she got busy with other projects, and it never actually got taken off the ground. And I actually considered taking it from her when she offered it to me at one point. She's like, maybe somebody else can take it over and start it up. And I thought about it, but it was a lot of work involved.
What was the name of it?
I honestly forget. It was something tied to Long Island.
Because I think that there was a local
The
currency.
LI currency.
I don't remember what it was, but there's ones up in New Hampshire. There's ones up in Massachusetts that I've heard of. But yeah, if you can get away with it.
But yeah, that's entirely what happened before a central bank, before the Federal Reserve. Each town would have their local currency, like since little banks issuing their own currency, and people would use that to trade. And it's completely plausible.
Well, there were bonds for like what the bank was holding.
Well, yeah, because that was before fractional reserve. That was before fractional reserve banking,
Exactly,
and banks actually kept, all their reserves were equal to what they loaned out.
Until there was a run on the banks.
Well, that's
Until there was a
when
run on.
Well, but if there's no fractional reserve banking, you can't have you can have a run, but it won't matter because they'll have all the money to hand out if they're keeping 100% of the reserve.
Correct.
But they can't do you can't do that anymore. But it also depends, because I think certain states have banned the production of your own currency. Or
They locked the guy with the Liberty dollar up.
Yeah,
he wasn't even
Van Nothausen or whatever.
No. I think the qualifications for that is if it resembles too much the U.S. dollar, you are competing with the U.S. dollar.
No, but I'm talking about even on the state level. Some states, I think, have outlawed people creating their own currency even for local purposes, regardless. Because they want to kiss ass to the federal government, and they want to keep the monopoly going, and they don't want to, because anything that happens like that, it's because a lot of people, it would sound silly to them, but anything you can do to stop using the de facto money in the country.
What's going on with Texas right now? What are they doing?
I have no idea what Texas is doing.
I heard Texas was like making their own reserve. They want all their gold back and stuff.
Oh yeah. I did hear about that.
They asked for it. Well, because Germany asked for their money a couple of years ago, and they were told no.
They were told 7 years. No, they said 7 years. We'll give you a quarter of what you asked.
Yeah, we can't do that right now. It's at the cleaners. We'll get back to you.
So when Texas gets all of their gold back, if they get their gold back, let's just say they do. Let's play pie in the sky. And all hell breaks loose. Texas goes, we're seceding, and they start printing their own currency. And Texas's dollar would be worth the most in the area.
And then you'll probably see a brain drain people going towards Texas, wanting to live there, construct their businesses there, and the rest of it.
But Texas has
tax base was fleet.
Texas has water problems right now. A lot of people don't know.
I thought they were doing all right.
No, they're running out of waters.
No, wait.
I'll tell you what, the greatest invention of the next 100 years, you hear this, is the mass scale desalination of water. That is to just be able to desalinate water immediately with no effort. as cheap as possible.
Yeah, they're cost effective. They
Yeah,
because
so
they have the technology, but it's
Yeah, they have the
ridiculously
technology.
expensive
It's so
right now.
expensive, though. Yeah.
yeah, so the great meme of the California water drought, and it's like you see a map. It says arrow California drought, arrow ocean
Ocean.
water.
Yeah.
Find a way to make it work.
Yeah, that if I was the United States or California, which a lot of California's issue can be tied to
It's government.
horrible farming
Well, yeah, it's the agriculture industry. It's a government. It's a
They're
government.
growing
created
rice
problem.
in the desert.
They created
That's
the
stupid as
problem.
fuck.
Although I must say my favorite story from the whole California mess I saw recently, I think it was it Tom Selleck got busted for stealing water for his avocado farms. It made me laugh because the headline actually said Magnum PI stealing. I think I'm pretty sure it was funny as hell. It
They
made me
spent
laugh.
like all this money to investigate, and it found out that he had paid for the water.
Yeah, I know. It's just funny though. It's like people are out there doing it because the
You made me
government
want
screwed up
some
so badly
avocados,
that
man.
there's a.
Ugh.
I actually have some in my drawer right now.
They're
Maybe I'll
so
have them after the show.
delicious.
Yeah,
A little bit of salt on them.
it kind of reminds you of those politicians who are like the strictest on gun control, and then you see they get found out as being operating an underground gun running business, right?
The
The ones
most
that are,
vehement anti-gay senator turns out to be having a wide stance at the restroom. That kind of thing, yeah.
you want a little foot
That's-
tap on them?
that's
You
the
want a
whole,
foot tap in the
guilty
next
dog
hole?
barks
Yes.
first syndrome.
Yes.
I think he doth protest too much.
What was you telling me about your CO? He was like viciously anti-gay, and then one day you saw him at a gay bar.
Oh, not my old platoon sergeant.
Yeah, my bad.
Yeah, I never, and I've got gaydar. I've got a lot of gay friends. I can usually pick up when someone's gay, but this guy did not trip my gaydar. And I went to when I got out of the Marine Corps, I went to the local gay bar to say goodbye to some friends who were hanging out there, and he walks up to me, and I was like, "Whoa, what are you doing here?" He goes, "You didn't know, did you?" No, I didn't. And then all the time he spent with some of my other platoon mates, privately in his room, I started thinking, "Ooh, wow, how many of them knew?" So yeah, but he was pretty homophobic on the exterior, but then he came out to me as soon as I was no longer in a position to rat him out. But yeah, yep, that happened.
Oh yeah. Well, it's like there's a story a while ago, and I can't remember if it was debunked or not, but there was supposedly a study that decided that the more homophobic somebody is, there actually is a correlation to people that are actually in the closet homosexuals, and whether it's well, yeah, but whether it was true or not, it's just funny. I actually use that as a response a lot of times when somebody comes into a page and their first thing is to start calling people faggots and stuff like that. That's just I just post that article.
Oh
And I just-
man, the
I
best
just-
one I
I
saw
just-
today.
I
I saw the
just
best
say
thing
it's-
today ever.
You know what they say about people that are this homophobic, and
I saw a picture
It
of
is.
Ron Jeremy shooting an AR, and he was looking back, and it said, and then it had like someone's comment captioned in it, and it was like, "Why do you have that gun? Is it because you got a tiny dick and stuff?" And it's like Ron Jeremy looking back, like, "The fuck?"
Right. Yeah, that story about the homophobics being,
Yeah.
and I have to say, I mean, listen, at the age of 17, I moved out from my mother's house, and I moved in with a girl I had just met. And we had two other roommates, and one of them was very blatantly gay. Okay. The other roommate of mine was very heterosexual and was the gay guy's bodyguard when he would go do shows at the local gay bars. Okay, so
That's funny. Nice.
I accidentally stumbled into this whole gay scene at the age of 17 and had my eyes wide open at a young age. And yes, I was a fag magnet, if you want to say that, because I was a good-looking kid, and yeah, they all hit on me and stuff, and I got used to it. I was like, whatever, I like women too much, so I never went that way. But the fact is that I got to understand that the more homophobic someone came out as, the more likely they were to be trying to cast aspersions on others to deflect from their own shortcomings, if you will. Pardon the pun. But
So does this correlate into like senators who are like super anti-war? Is the more anti you are something like in the closet you're actually for? Because like Obama comes out and says, "Oh, we're gonna shut down all these secret prisons. We're gonna get out of Iraq and Afghanistan and all this." And what does he do? It's war. It's been war his entire presidency. A lot of people don't understand that.
No,
We've
no,
been
no,
at war.
has been more war, not just war.
well, I'll explain this.
Increase.
This is
Or what are they? Small military operations, whatever.
Boots on the ground. Boots on the ground.
right.
No, there's
Sir,
no
no,
boots
there's-
on the
It's just a surgical strike. No big deal. No
surgical
big
strike.
deal.
Yeah, that's what I call Pearl Harbor. It was just a surgical strike. There's no reason to get your panties in a wad. But I mean, I'm just going off of Bush and Obama logic here.
Right. If there is such a thing.
That's an oxymoron, right there.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, print money, get bitches. That's their MO. Bail out friends and ride in yachts.
Yeah. So,
So Danilo, can you
Danilo.
steer us back?
Yeah.
I tried. We deflected again.
we need you in the front, choo in this thing, okay?
So,
Does that make you the caboose?
The very
right,
wild
all right,
wild
all
card caboose.
all right, since we're on the gay topic, I
Oh,
just have to say,
God.
Adrian, that video that you did with on the gay marriage, gold. That sparked so much controversy, so much talk, and it was great.
Good. I'm glad it did. I did not know that it did, but I'm glad it did. If it got one person thinking about it,
Oh my God!
I
I got many
succeeded.
people thinking.
I can't remember exactly what you said, but I remember liking it and sharing it on our show page.
cool.
I think. What did you say? I think with a smile at the end, you're like, "Oh, by the way, it's a psyop. You guys got suckered."
You guys got suckered. And you know what's funny is that I posted that video about everybody getting suckered into supporting gay marriage, and I said in my video, I said, you came out of the closet as a gay supporter all of a sudden, which was a pun, and I said now you're out of the closet as a gay supporter, but that's only because it's now popular.
Yeah.
But then I said, you got psyoped, you got suckered, and as soon as I posted that video on Facebook, I watched a lot of friends who had changed their profile pictures to some gay pride colors, switched them back. Okay? And I was really kind of smirking about that. I thought that was kind of cute.
I couldn't even keep track anymore because there were so many people that not only did that, but then the people like friends of ours who did it over like Confederate flags and stuff like that to mock them. All I saw was rainbow over like 90% of my list, so I just stopped paying attention.
Right.
It's funny though because I actually did a little video on that too. The whole I didn't mention that part of it though because I had heard that may not be true or whatever, but it makes perfect sense that they would do that because it's the bandwagon fallacy. Everybody just jumps on it, becomes a popular thing, and it's they want to seem hip, they want to seem
Those NFL ref memes are the best.
Oh, those are my new favorite things in the world. Those fallacy memes.
For about a week there, Facebook looked like they combined two shows from the 80s. Bosom Buddies meets Dukes of Hazzard.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly. That's all it was. The talk was
Yeah,
about. But
I know I'm showing my age there by mentioning Bosom Buddies because not everybody's going to know that one.
I love that. I watched that show. I was a
I
huge
did
fan of
too.
that show.
What the hell was Bosom Buddies? That's
Bosom
before
Buddies
my
was
time.
Tom-
That's where
was
Tom
Tom
Hanks
Hanks's-
got his start.
Tom
Oh, really?
Hanks's first. He was on a TV series. It was Tom Hanks and Peter Scolari, I think. And they played these. They were these Manhattan guys who wanted to get into this one apartment building, but they couldn't because they had to be. They were only accepting women, so they dressed up as women in order to get this apartment. I think it was right. And then they spent half like they would go to work as themselves, and then they would have to spend the rest
So
of the
those
time.
anti-discrimination laws in New York, pretty shitty, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the whole discrimination thing is always ridiculous because people throw that word around and they don't understand what it means.
I mean, if you're gonna have a law, you might as well do it, right?
Well, I mean that whole thing. If we're gonna get into that, I mean that whole thing.
I mean, if
we've
we're gonna
talked
kill
about it.
Jews, we might as well go all out.
I mean, Jeremy is discriminating.
Who's
with his
killing
business,
Jews?
right?
Wait a minute. What are we talking about?
I mean, no. I'm just going off of status logic here.
No, Jeremy is automatically discriminating with his business, right? Because he's not catering to the feline population, right? He's not walking ferrets.
That's not true.
He's not
That's not true.
he's not walking
That's not
ferrets. He's not walking
Hey,
mice or guinea pigs.
You're gonna kill my business. I actually do take all those animals, man. Stop.
Oh, do you?
Yes, but people discriminate every day. You discriminate. I heard somebody talking about this earlier, and it was. I mean, I've heard the analogy before, but the way they said it made perfect sense. It's like, somebody who's in a monogamous marriage discriminates against every other man or woman, depending on what whoever you're with, discriminates against every other one because they're only having sex with their partner. It's discriminating.
That's I don't know.
That was a great Walter Williams quote I heard recently. He said, somebody asked him, what about discrimination? He's like, well, when I met my wife and I dated her, I was discriminating against every other woman, and then I married her, and my wife wanted me to continue discriminating. I would have wanted to spread my my abilities, but my wife wanted me to discriminate. So
I was willing to be all about equality, but she said no. What am I supposed to do? But exactly, that's the point. People, the same person who said, it's killing me that I can't remember what show I was listening to, but the same person who said that said something else. Said, having discriminating taste used to be a good thing. That you wouldn't just go for anything. That you had you had a more selective taste. You choose, the things you choose in life. People that you discriminate all the time, but it's just become another buzzword that people want to say. I mean, that was the thing. All those people a lot of the people that were doing the rainbow flag thing were getting angry at people that weren't, and it became the automatic false dichotomy. Well, you don't have it up, you must hate gays. It's like, what the fuck? No, I just don't want to I don't want to follow the crowd. I have no interest in doing so. I've had the same profile pic for since I first found the abolitionist thing, and I actually only updated it because somebody posted a newer one with some words on it that I like even better. But why am I going to change that just because everybody else is doing this thing?
I had to change mine. Mine's too perfect now.
But the point was everybody jumped on that bandwagon, and people got angry over it. It's ridiculous, because that was the point of my video. The whole thing was insane. Why are we cheering this on? You're cheering people getting permission to ask permission.
Actually, the bandwagon fallacy is, and we were talking about money and economics. Kind of reminds me of tulip mania. I'm sure you guys have heard it, right? Tulip mania, was that in Holland? I think, right?
Yes.
When in the 1700s, when somehow tulips were artificially introduced into Holland, and then people started buying it, and then people started getting interested, and then for some reason really, really interested, and the value was went up, and then more people got into it because the value was going up, and there was hysteria, and then the perfect bandwagon fallacy, right, where everybody bought into it because everyone was buying into it, and then the value was going through the roof, and then at some point it just went off a cliff, and the people who didn't sell theirs were just holding flowers that were valueless.
I've got all these flowers. Now what do I do?
So if you want to steer us back, I guess, if you want to try to figure out how to hedge against, I don't want to sound tin foolish again, but the oncoming collapse of the dollar, the euro, the yen, whatever.
You're not, though. It has to happen. I mean, people look at.
I think it's all going to collapse at once, and one world government or one world currency is going to come out.
It has to happen, but I think people don't realize that. Everybody thinks the U.S. dollar will always be here because it has always been here.
That's I was gonna get hit on that because people like Ron Paul and Peter Schiff and people like that have been talking about this for years. And everybody looks at them and goes, "Oh, they're crazy," because you keep saying it's going to happen. When is it going to happen? It's like, well, no. The people at the top of the system don't really want that to happen just yet because they haven't been able to take all the wealth from everybody just yet. So that's why it continues to hold on, but it will collapse eventually. It has to. There's no way the system can continue to sustain itself. I mean, it's lost the dollar's lost between 95 and 98% of its value since 1913, and the bulk of that has happened since 70 or whatever, or 64, whenever it was.
71.
Since 71, since the ties were officially
the Nixon shot.
Yes, since it was officially since then it has been sped up. yeah, exponentially since then.
But yeah, I was
but
going to
it's-
mention our episode on money. Go back and watch that or listen to that. We covered what we think you can do to hedge against that. You know, buy.
Sure.
There's like I made like a more importance chart. I don't know how to say it, but I would say like gold is number one, then silver, then Bitcoin, then bullets, then food.
I would put
That's how.
I would put bullets and food above Bitcoin actually, but that's just me.
Well, you can buy bullets and food with Bitcoin.
Yeah, but if it's a complete collapse, that's the one issue with Bitcoin. You guys started talking about that earlier. You know, and what happens if the dollar collapses, and then how much Bitcoin? You know, Adrian asked you that question. Right? What is how much is your labor worth in matter of Bitcoin? Well, that's going to have to get figured out again, because there's
Yeah, the
unless it
market will
gets
find
that-
a way.
Well,
Well, yeah, no, I'm not saying it won't, but there's going to be
And then there's new technologies of using Bitcoin through radio towers.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
So like even if the
there's gonna-
internet goes out, you still
That's
have
not what
radio
I'm saying,
towers.
though. That's not what I'm saying, though. There's going to be an interim period of where it has to readjust to, where it has to get, what it's going to be based.
Well, the
off
chickens
of.
have to come home to roost, man.
The
There's
problem-
going to be a
Again,
there's-
I know
there's
it's-
there's going to be a Band-Aid ripoff. Period.
No, I understand that it's going. I'm not.
Not
saying-
period. I'm saying there's going to be a
get it.
period of the Band-Aid being ripped off,
and then
I get it.
Dave's
and the
gonna-
ouchie, ouchie, ouchie.
and then Dave's gonna pick the scab on top of that.
Yes.
I'm gonna pee on this.
He's not gonna
it's
let it
go-
heal. He's not gonna let it heal.
I'm gonna get. I'm
going
gonna
to-
get the. I can't conceptualize it yet in my head, but the whole pool and the government peeing in the pool scenario. I'm gonna get that made into a T-shirt. I can't. I don't exactly know the specifics of it yet, but I really hope we can come up with something good.
Well, anyway, it's going. Yes, it is going to happen. That's not the point. I'm just saying, as far as Bitcoin goes, there's going to have to be an adjustment period of where people figure out what it's worth again, because it'll probably be worth something, and it'll probably be a good medium,
Here's what
or
I
something
think will
like
happen.
or something like it. But
Here's what I
that's not
think
the
will
point.
happen: a country, maybe Russia or China or Zimbabwe, who the fuck knows, is going to come out with a gold-based currency that you can hedge the Bitcoin against or compare it to against. So if Russia comes out with a gold-based currency, the ruble becomes worth one ruble's worth $1 million or whatnot, or Texas dollars, whatever you want to say. You can always hedge the Bitcoin against.
No,
You can use this many Bitcoins to buy this many gold-backed currencies.
I get no. I don't. You're missing what I'm saying. I know that's going to happen. I'm just going to say.
I'm
in
like
the interim-
Neo, man. I just miss. You can't hit me.
So the way I look at
No,
it,
there's going to be a period of time before that happens. That's what I was trying to get at. So that's why I would rank it lower in your little rankings there. Food and bullets are more
Okay.
important.
All right.
it's just a little ranking. So,
I mean,
so-
bullets
so-
might be the most important, but I'm an ANCAP, and I don't believe in the initiation of force. But if I was some dirty, dastardly person, bullets would probably be my number one because.
Even for hunting purposes, they should still be high on your list.
Well, I mean, with a bullet, all right. So if you have a gun and a bullet, and someone has a brick of gold and food, you now, if you want, have that brick of gold in that food.
yeah. Actually, I was told.
Unless
by
that person doesn't value their life.
I was told that by a guy who I met at a precious metal shop when I was buying silver. Big guy. I think he was like a former. He's a veteran, I guess, former military guy. And he's like, gold and silver are good, but it doesn't match up with my lead, right? My lead beats your gold and silver.
Yeah, if you're
And
going to be a dick, sure.
If you're gonna be, yeah, exactly. But actually, Jeremy, so you were talking about Bitcoin and what it's worth. So the way I look at it is, the problem with measuring all of these physical, tangible commodities against something that's illusory and fake and inflated, such as fiat currency, is it's a lie. It's like it's a the way Mike Maloney from goldsilver.com describes the dollar is a liar's lie. It is so far from reality that to compare that to something that exists in the real world that's physical, that's limited, finite, like gold, silver, or bullets or whatever, is just completely absurd. We cannot measure something that's so arbitrary and able to be printed by the billions with things that cannot be, right? So Bitcoin, the way I look at it, its value would be determined from the people and the businesses that are willing to use it and transact in it, right? So that's what's going to give it value, and that's what has given it value and has raised it from being worth nothing, being worth just a digit on the screen, to actually having real world value. because so many businesses have opted to use it and transact with it. So yeah, so I don't think that transition would be prolonged. It might happen, but
No,
very very short.
no,
And
I'm not talking
yeah,
years or anything. I'm just saying there's
yeah,
going to be a period because even
yeah,
the
there will be
business,
a period. Yeah,
well, because even the businesses that do
yeah,
deal in it now do so based on the dollar, and that's
yeah,
what they're
yeah,
that's
yeah.
what because they're taking the rest of their merchandise that other people use dollars for, and they're taking the what the conversion is and going, okay, well, this is what the conversion is right now. So that's all I was trying to say, is that
Yeah.
in the interim there would be a little bit of a hiccup, but I still think it will be even if it's not Bitcoin, maybe it's another one that's props up, that would be something. Bitcoin would be the thing that would replace ATM cards. If there's the dollar collapse and there's no more fiat currency and people aren't keeping things in banks, well, then you just use something like Bitcoin, so you can still transact on the go. You don't have to worry about carrying things in your pocket, so that would most likely be a perfect use for that, and that would, it would.
Well,
I could see it taking off.
we haven't had a major societal monetary collapse with the internet in existence, and I'm talking about like massive, like how it happened in the 30s and the 20s. Across the planet. The internet is kind of a game changer on a lot of different levels.
So one thing that that I learned, studying monetary economics and precious metals from Mike Maloney, is he makes the conclusion after studying monetary history that there is a shift every 30 to 40 years, roughly every 30 to 40 years, there's a shift in monetary system, right? So you had the Federal Reserve, and then you had the classical gold standard before the Federal Reserve, and then you had, after that, the gold exchange standard. Then you had the Bretton Woods system, and then after the Nixon shock, and now we have complete fiat currency. Now the difference is, before we had hyperinflations, it was only regional, right? It was just Zimbabwe, right? It was just Peru, it was just Argentina, just Colombia, just Hungary, right? Or even during the Revolutionary War, it was just it was localized, right? But now every country on the planet is a fiat currency, right? So what happens when those countries, collapse because of, lack of confidence, or just hyperinflation due to overprinting, right? So what happens when those dominoes start to fall and they all just fall over like a house of cards? Because it's not just going to be easy to cling on to another currency, right? Because they're all collapsing, and so it's going to be a unique time. And I think I think barter might be good, but I definitely think Bitcoin is going to play a big role, gold, silver, and the ammo and all that stuff. But one thing that I also think is kind of likely is that they're going to definitely, they're not going to want that to happen, of course, right? They're going to want to, the IMF and the World Bank are very, very busy right now looking at special drawing rights and other renaming the currency, resetting it back to zero, and of course maybe and then people would trade, they hope have thousands of dollars, you trade $1,000 for 10 the new currency, and just like lose all of your wealth, like has happened in every single currency crisis in every country, right? It's the people suffer every single time.
That's because there's
right?
a monopolization on gold, right, Adrian? Or not gold, but money. They force you to use a certain money.
That's the definition of fiat.
Yeah.
Well,
It's not just a car.
Well, I mean, obviously, like you said, they don't want that to happen, but that's why to bring it back full circle to how we started this with, like Greece, for instance, if enough people had learned their lesson by putting in the even more socialist government than was before, and seeing what has happened, if enough people realize that, and because there had been talk of them saying, well, they're just going to default and say, F you, we're not going to pay you back, like with the IMF. Like, the IMF doesn't want that to happen, because all it takes is one country to start doing that, and then what are they really going to do to them? Like, with as you were also saying,
war.
with the Well, no, but in the age of the internet, it's a lot harder to get away with certain things these days. So they can't, with this, what are they going to do? Put sanctions on them and stuff like that. It'll become more well known what is happening, all for somebody, getting out of a deal that they probably should have never gotten in the first place. Because you look at someplace like Iceland, where the people of the country got together and tossed the bankers out. And
they still have a central bank, so it doesn't matter.
Because they didn't learn their lesson. But that's what I'm saying. Like a place like Greece, if there was enough people, if there was enough like stateless society type people in there that could start something up and convince others to like, no, we're just going to default on this. Like this isn't ours. This is the government's debt. We had nothing to do with this. You know, like that's the spark you need to start something. It's just unfortunately.
Well, then the poor pensioners are going to die in the street, man.
Well, yeah, because the propaganda will take over and most people will buy it. But that's situations like this are unfortunately it never seems to materialize, but they're like the perfect situation to start showing the chinks in the armor and start showing people that, you know, just walk away and say, no, I don't want to do this anymore.
I mean, I had a point earlier about Greece. They're like the canary in the coal mine. Greece is going to default. They're not going to be able to pay back that debt. I don't care what you say on it. I don't care if they have
they can't even pay back the interest.
I don't care if they have 1,000 years to pay it back unless they adopt some Milton Friedman-like policies and just say fuck you to all their pensioners and welfare programs. But that's not going to happen because they're stupid. So what you're going to see is Germany, France,
there goes our Greek subscribers.
All 0 of them. What's going to happen is Germany, France,
Not true. We had a couple last week.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. They're gonna
Not anymore.
Well, I'm not saying they're
stupid.
I'm not saying the Greeks are stupid. I'm saying their government is stupid, and they're stupid for allowing it. So yeah, they are stupid. So
we almost had them back. Almost.
They're gone now. They're out with Ben Bernanke. They're gone. They're walking.
They're like unsubscribe. All right, then subscribe. No, unsubscribe again.
Yeah. But anyways, you're gonna see Germany, France, and England, and all these other IMF-tied Euro banks, the people who use the euro, they're gonna bail the fuck out of.
Well, it's just Germany. Germany's the one who bails everybody out.
Okay, so Germany's gonna do. So then Germany's gonna collapse, and then after Germany collapse, France is gonna collapse. France is at near collapse anyway. So is Spain and Portugal, because of all these social welfare programs. They don't even have armies over there. They have no military. If they do, it's like so small that like one battalion from America could take over that country. So you have this issue where all these are going to just like dominoes fall. And then if America tries to bail out, China or the euro or whatnot, they're going to collapse too. So you're going to have a whole world collapse of every currency because they're all tied together. We used to have mutually insured destruction where everyone had nukes pointed at everybody. Make a move. No, you make a move. I don't want to because you'll blow me up. Well, I don't want to because you'll blow me up. We're at that point now with everybody's economy. China says, they can hate America all they want, but America accounts for 30% of their economy. If any country loses 30% of their economy overnight, they go tits up. They go bankrupt. So you have all these countries. It's going to be like dominoes. The next 10 years are going to be really sketchy years, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Very.
Already sketchy. They're just going to get sketchier.
Yeah, you're going to see foods. You're going to see food, water, etc. shortages. You're going to see more radicalized people. You know, the communists, they never understand. Like not only is the horse dead on communism and they're still beating it, but there's no more horse left. They're just beating the ground where the horse used to be. Like the horse,
bloody.
No. The carcass has dried up and turned to dust, and they're just beating the ground.
The flies aren't even there because there's no more meat, right?
Exactly. Yeah. There's no, and they're saying, but if we just print more money, if we just do this, if people would just not, it never works. All the communists clamor for all this communism and socialist policies that don't work, and all they do is get twisted and turned by the fascists at the top. The fascists laugh and laugh and laugh and take away with all the money they want. The economic collapse helps the fascists because, we'll just put up a new currency, but now we own half the nation.
Well, that's the
so it doesn't matter. So then we're going to start pushing more and more people into more centralized zones so we can give them this false security of welfare. It's going to be a sketchy next 10, 20 years. Very. I'm glad I got to enjoy the pre-9/11 America. I'm not saying it was all pie in the sky, but it was
a lot better than it is now.
It was a lot better than it is now. I remember, $40 could fill an entire buggy full of groceries at the thing, man. You spend like $100 now, and you're walking out with like 3 bags.
I just went to BJ's the other day, spent $600, and I walked out with 1 cart or 1.5 carts, and I was like, I just shook my head and just, I wanted to cry.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's
What about you getting a BJ?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
Well, I'll talk about that later. That's for the after show. So it's going.
Seas of Liberty after dark.
I mean, yeah, it is going to happen, but
The mic stops covering the soul patch.
As far as as far as what to do, I mean, Dave pointed to our other episode about money, about how how you can diversify your assets and things you can do in that nature. I think the best thing for people to do is to act as if these things are not only imminent, but like super imminent, and if it doesn't happen, great. But the best, you start making those connections in your community and start, like Danilo had said about the farmers markets, they're not going to collapse. People like that will still want to hawk their wares, and people will find a way to make it happen. So you make connections with people like that.
Grocery store owners are going to still want to operate. So they're going to be around.
So yeah, people will find ways to make it work. You mentioned barter. Barter is a wonderful thing. I mean, I try to do it with some of my clients right now. The whole reason money really came into existence, though, is because barter became less efficient on a larger scale. So they had to find a way, because it's one thing if you live in a small community and you have chickens, so you can either sell meat or egg, trade meat or eggs to your neighbor, and they sew, they knit stuff, you can trade clothes for eggs, and do stuff like that. But when you start having to get like 3 or 4 people involved to get the thing you want, it becomes extremely time consuming. And you may not always be able to find a trading partner.
But luckily, we have that Bitcoin thing we were talking about.
Well, no, but exactly. So like stuff like that. The system, even when the system goes down, like I said, there's going to be people that'll panic, but there'll be enough people that'll just continue with their lives and go.
Well,
okay,
everyone's looking at Venezuela, like that's the back of their mind. They're because they're seeing it right now. There's supermarkets with empty shelves. Everything's being raided. Now people are being rationed food and stuff. That's because the government controls all of that.
Yeah, well, that's not new in Venezuela, though. That happens every like 20 years, doesn't it?
I don't know. I'm not.
Yeah. I think it's more like every decade.
Or not
well,
shade.
Yeah, it might be every. I was actually being generous there. You're right. It might be every decade. It's horrible.
Well, yeah, that's because they have socialist.
And nobody trusts the currency anymore. So Bitcoin is quite popular in those South American countries.
Well, that's
like a lot of people use it.
That's. I mean, aside from what Adrian mentioned earlier about the price of the dollar, inflating. So that's actually what's a lot behind the Bitcoin rise. But it's also it's also countries like that, and it's also there was another spike after everything started going down in Greece too, because people in Greece are starting to say, oh crap, maybe I can use this Bitcoin instead because I can only take out $60-something a day or whatever it is out of my ATM. So that's what caused the spike again, because people are getting involved, and that's what everybody's been waiting for in the Bitcoin community. It's because it's still a very volatile currency. Well, some people call it a currency, some don't. Whatever. It's very volatile right now.
There was there was 4 stores in Athens that took Bitcoin late last year, and now there's like 300 in Athens.
Well, exactly, and that almost exactly proves your point that those people that are doing business still want to do business. They still want to survive. So okay, there's another alternative. Great, I'll take it. I'll do that.
Yeah,
right
and
away.
when your customers come in and go, hey, I want to buy that, and they go, well, that's 20 euros. I don't carry euros. All I carry is Bitcoin. I can't do business with you. See you later. Call me when you get Bitcoin, and turn around and walk out. That might one person doing that to you is not a big deal, but like when you can't sell shit without it, you're gonna adopt it.
Yeah.
Like
when half your customers in one day do that, then it's like, oh shit, like I just lost all that profit. Now what do I do? Like,
exactly,
okay.
Yeah.
That's the same reason that I started when I started my business, people kept trying to push me into taking credit cards. I never got around to that. But I used to take cash and checks, and now I'm getting out of the banking system, so I don't take checks anymore. But I'll take pretty much whatever people want to offer me. I tell people, if you want to give me cash,
that's what you
fine.
were talking about, going to BJ's. Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I prefer. Yeah, exactly. Hey, listen, man.
We need to wrap this up. We're at a minute 30. Let's
give
give Adrian like 5 minutes to talk, and then we'll wrap up, I guess.
About what?
Just tell us what's on your mind, Adrian.
BJ's, apparently, according to Dave.
Well, I'll talk about Bitcoin as I see it, and I'm not the biggest guy on Bitcoin, but something has occurred to me that with the rise in Bitcoin's value as opposed to the dollar, I see this happening. I see people getting into this idea of trading. So they want to treat it like a stock market. And I imagine that there are people doing this that say, oh, I bought Bitcoin when it was worth 140. Now it's worth 300. And they'll go and trade their Bitcoin for dollars again. Okay, now what they've just done is they've traded value for value, because that's exactly what the dollar is worth. It's lost half its value since you bought your Bitcoin. Okay, but they don't realize that, and I think that.
Well, I think Bitcoin's a little too much volatile to make that claim directly, but the nature of your statement is dead on.
Yeah, people. It's because, and I include myself in this following statement. People in general, in the United States especially, are very, very illiterate when it comes to economics. Okay. Just as we talked about earlier about Mark Dice, offering a chocolate bar or 10 ounces of silver, and people make the silliest decisions because they are not educated.
Let me see if the silver tastes good. No, not gonna take it.
Right. What am I doing with a silver bar? Look, the silver bar could buy you 150 chocolate bars. How about that? I'll tell you what, if I worked at Taco Bell and someone offered to buy a taco for a 10-ounce silver bar, dude, I will pay for it out of my pocket.
I know, right? I'm going to pay for it. You give me that. Right.
Right. Exactly. So, right, because gold and silver and precious metals will hold their value in the market, whereas fiat currency, this little paper here that's worthless, is this rises and falls at the whim of arbitrary decisions made by people you don't even know about. So it's a matter of value and what people value. That's the funny thing about the market, and what I've come to understand over the years is that, for example, a spoon has a value on it. Okay,
The spoon's not real.
If I have 100 spoons, right, the spoon is not real. The spoon has a value on it, and it has a higher value than someone who doesn't have one.
Bend it, Adrian, bend it. Sorry.
Success.
He did it.
If you have 100,000 spoons, they're worth less to you than the person who has no spoon. Who would
or if you're the only one with a spoon around, that spoon is
right,
very expensive.
And it's a luxury at that point.
Yeah, that's. I always say, like, if you have a gallon jug of water and you're standing in the middle of a lake and you walk up and try to sell that gallon jug of water, it's not worth that much. But let's say I'm walking through the desert with a backpack full of gold, no water, and someone walks up and says, "Hey, I've got a gallon of water here." How much is that gallon of water now?
Right.
It's,
what's it worth?
That backpack full of all of that gold.
What's it worth to you? And it's perceived value, and that's where the market corrects itself. And that's what's happening with the rise of Bitcoin right now. The market, as long as it's free, which is the opposite of fiat, by the way, as long as it's free, it will correct itself. But as long as it's fiat, you're going to have people making decisions for you based on their arbitrary whims. And you can't survive that way, because you'll go broke and wind up dependent upon them to control your life. And that's where we find ourselves today. We find a lot of people today find themselves dependent upon the system that's in place. And that's sad.
So what would you what would you tell somebody that has like maybe 200 grand in the bank?
I would invest about half of it in
get it out of the bank, first of all.
First, yeah, that's the first thing.
invest half of it in silver and the other half in Bitcoin. That's what I would do.
Keep about 10,000 in there just in case.
I recommend people get out of the banks altogether.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, look what they're doing in Greece. Look what they're doing in Greece.
Well,
They
exactly.
won't let you get money out of your own bank account.
Well, that's why I mentioned Cyprus, because that was the first time that people were able to see that, because of the internet and because of the way the information is passed. Like before the advent of the internet, something like that would have happened. Nobody would have noticed.
Yeah,
but
nothing really
enough
happened.
people.
Jeremy, nothing. It was just a haircut.
Exactly.
They just skimmed the top. That's it.
The language they use is so despicable. It's just a haircut.
It's an appropriation, Jeremy.
We're taking money we're taking your money out
Expropriation.
of your, out of your bank account.
Right.
If you have more than this arbitrary number that we're going to set, we're just going to take it. It's no big deal. We're just going to take this money. It's like, but that, and people, and same thing can't happen, just like everything else. Oh, that can never happen here. Why the hell not? People said that wouldn't happen in Cyprus. Well, now it's happening in Greece. It's happening in other places. It can and will happen here eventually. Banks are not safe. Like if it wasn't for my mortgage, which is, I've talked about this before. That's a mistake I made years ago that I'm trying to get out of now because I want nothing to do with it anymore. But if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't even have a bank account at all. I only have one because I have to put money, that's how I pay make my mortgage payments. And I have only like one or two other payments that I haven't been able to get another way around because they don't accept Bitcoin yet. And their only offices are too far away for me to physically go there. But, every other transaction I go to people's offices and pay directly in cash. I use Bitcoin when I can. Because we've talked about that a lot. For me, I don't, because Adrian, you said about investing it. I'm not huge in that community, but I don't talk about investing in it because I don't look at it as an investment. Yeah, hold on to a few if you want.
I bought a Bitcoin when they were $900, so I've lost. Well, yeah, technically lost money, but I don't see it as that. I'm getting my money out of the fiat system.
Well, yeah. So trade in it when you can. Hold a little stockpile if you want for diversity purposes, but find ways you can trade in it because that's one more way that you could not have to use the fiat currency. So do all of those things. Find ways that you can get out of the system. That's what I recommend. Opt out in as many ways as possible. Get out of the banking system altogether. If you have that kind of money, yeah, maybe you could diversify it in other ways, but stockpile some other stuff that you will need at some point, regardless of what happens. Like even stuff as simple as like toilet paper and and paper towels or tissue, whatever, paper products, simple stuff like that you can store for
light bulbs.
Yeah, exactly. Anything like that. Like you put your money into stuff like your extra money into stuff like that. Like I have friends of mine that I'm trying to convince to get out of their government jobs in different capacities. And they always talk about their pensions and this and that. And it's like, it's not going to be there.
I know, exactly. It doesn't exist. It doesn't even exist.
Look what happened in Detroit. Look what's continued to happen in Chicago. The money is not going to be there. It has been promised to people by politicians who knew it wouldn't hit home for another 20 years, so they could vote it away and say, yes, we're going to give you this money. We're going to give you this money. Just like Social Security. I had a client ask me that the other day. I hadn't seen them in a while. And we got to talking, and it got around to because I had one of my anarchist shirts on, and she asked me questions about it, and I explained everything to her, and we got into the whole banking thing, and then she's like, well, what about Social Security? I'm like, I don't pay into that. And she's like, well, what are you going to do? It's like, well, first of all, why would I pay into that? Even people who believe that it was the insurance policy that it was sold as, which is so ridiculous at this point that some people still believe that, because even the government themselves had to come out 5 years after the act was passed and say, yeah, no, that was never really, they quietly came out and said, yeah, that was never really what it was supposed to be about.
Yeah, the Supreme Court made them, because someone was like, this is compulsory service.
Yes,
no,
exactly.
This is a tax.
Yeah, exactly. The Supreme Court had to rule it a tax, and that's what it was. So and even the people that believe that, even the people that were
That's
there.
why I'm so surprised by everybody upset about Obamacare.
Yeah,
they're like, they're forcing us to buy insurance. All the government have to say is, okay, now it's a tax.
Yeah,
it's a tax.
That's what they did with Social Security. But you never, even the people that honestly paid into it and whatever, you never get back anywhere close to what you put in. So
it's like your refund check at the year. It's like,
yeah,
This is like a quarter. This is like a 1/10 of what I gave you.
So exactly. So what's the point? So I don't pay into that. There's no point in me paying into that. I wanted to do. I'll take care of myself. I'll secure my retirement as I need to, you know. But all those people that are counting on stuff like that, it's not gonna be here. You can keep saying, oh, they've been saying this forever. It'll still be there. It can't. It just can't last. There's no possible way that can survive. And so you do everything you can to provide for yourself now and as much as you can in the future. And the best way you can do that, like I said, I think is diversifying what you have, stockpiling certain stuff that you know you'll need anyway. Because if and when the hyperinflation hits, toilet paper is going to become ridiculously expensive. And if you're already sitting on a stockpile that you can pick up at the local, like the warehouse type stores, like I was talking about, like BJ's or Costco, all that stuff, you buy those giant packages of like hundreds of rolls for like $20. Find someplace to store it, but get a bunch of those. Like all that could help. And then, I also recommend to people, especially people that are tied to like corporate jobs and they're always worried about stuff like that. Go out on your own. Find some kind of business you can create. That's the best thing you could do. The more people that start little, even just a tiny little small business, even if it's a part-time / hobby thing for a while, anything you can do like that. Also going back to what was mentioned earlier about skills, you can find skills that you didn't realize you had, or you can hone a skill that you do know you have. Because if and when things eventually hit the fan, then you're even more prepared. You're ahead of the game because now you have something to offer if you weren't able to stockpile gold, silver, other things of value. So, all of these things, it's like the agorist type lifestyle. Like I encourage that as much as possible. I mean, heck, not only am I looking to get out of my mortgage and move the hell out of New York, I'm trying to sell my wife on the tiny house thing. Like I want to go.
But Jeremy, a house is an investment in your future.
My ass. Oh, probably one of the worst mistakes I ever made.
We should do an episode just on real estate and mortgages. That would be beautiful.
Like a part of me hopes, like when the shit collapses, the banks aren't gonna just say, "Hey, you know what? We own that house. Get the fuck out of it." Like
that's something that
I hope
tell
they
people
do.
all
I
the
hope
time.
they do because I want to see my bank come down my street with a tank. Because that's what it's going to take them to get me out of my fucking house.
I tell people that all the time. You really think the bank owns your house because you signed a contract and they typed in numbers on a screen saying that you now owe them $300,000, and so therefore they own the huge place where you live, all your rooms, all the physical things, they own that because of that?
Legally, they do.
No, I know, but I know.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to get that in their mind. Like they have made that money up. It was fabricated. It didn't exist before you signed the contract.
Well,
right?
Larkin actually did an episode about that recently. I'm a little behind, but I was listening to one today. It was from like last week, I think, where he was talking about that, about the whole idea, that this mortgage that, the bank just makes up money and hands it to the other person. I've talked about that with other people before too. It's technically the terms of the contract with the bank is a separate thing, but the terms of the contract of the house have been settled. The person wanted a certain amount of money. The bank just made it up out of thin air and gave it to them, so they're satisfied. You wanted the house. You have the house, so your end is satisfied. So now you only have this agreement between you and the bank, but it's actually, and that's what Larka was talking about, in reality, it's complete bullshit because they didn't give anything of value. They just made up something and handed it to this guy.
There's no collateral there.
Yeah, there's nothing. So technically,
they didn't put up anything.
If it wasn't for all the legal mumbo jumbo, you could just tell the bank to kiss your ass because the guy got his money, you got your house, we're happy. We don't need you anymore. There's people that do that, though. I belong to a group of people, on a Facebook group, that people that do that are constantly fighting. And I know some people that have done that have used the legal system to fight for their house and not have to pay their mortgage anymore and not pay property taxes because, that's along the line of the sovereign citizen routine. But I've seen people that I know a couple of people that have done. I mean, the courts are still all over them, but they're still holding them off at the present moment. But it's based on that premise. Have
you heard of the case of Joseph Daly?
I don't think so.
Oh, we're at an hour 45.
Yeah, I know. Let me just I'll finish up. Dave, you want to finish up with anything?
No. If you've had the patience to listen through this, I really appreciate you doing that. I know we went on a lot of tangents, but it was a fun episode. I really enjoyed Adrian coming on to send us his wisdom, and thanks for all the fun, guys.
Thanks for having me.
I'll just finish up with this anecdote here and in a little bit. So Joseph Daly, right? I think it was in the 1960s. You can look it up. I think it went to the Supreme Court. So he argued that he did not owe the bank anything because, again, like along these same lines of logic, the bank did not put up any collateral, right? It didn't offer anything of itself. It created it, and then and then interestingly enough, the judge ruled in his favor, saying, and there were, I remember reading about this. The judge actually wrote, "Nobody can create anything; only God can create things." Right? So this set a precedent, and interestingly enough, I think like a few weeks later, there's something, a mysterious thing happened to the judge, and he died. And then after that, the precedent somehow got destroyed, and now no judge is willing to make this ruling anymore because of the obvious repercussions that it would have, right? So yeah, it's it's a very, very interesting ruling. But yeah, you can look it up, check that out. But yeah, so my whole thing is there's this YouTube channel I follow. He's big into silver. It's called Truth Never Told, and I was into that way before I got into voluntarism, and I really learned a lot from the guy. But he's not a voluntarist. He's not an Austrian economist, but he is this really smart guy, and he talks a lot about silver. And one thing, his motto is real money, real friends, and real skills, right? And that's what's really gonna be important in those times, right? Is what do you have to trade for, and also the valuable intrinsic value of precious metals, because it has been used pretty successfully for at least 2,000 years. Since the beginning, since Greece. I think it's Lydia. So in Lydia, in Greece, it started silver and gold coins started being minted. Before then, it was used like in Egypt, but not as formalized, not as like standardized weight and everything. But it has been used for thousands of years, and there's no real reason why it would not continue to be used after U.S. dollar is going to collapse. And for those people that think that the U.S. dollar is an exception to fiat currency crises and devaluations and hyperinflations, there's another newsletter I used to follow called The Daily Reckoning. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. I unsubscribe, but they gave an interesting anecdote. They said that this guy was given the task to research all of the fiat currencies that have ever existed and what happened to them, right? And why did they fail? And so the guy researched, and he was going from the alphabet, all the fiat currencies starting from A, right? He went from A, all of them, and then he got halfway through B, and he stopped researching, because his conclusion was obvious, because they all ended the same. They all got destroyed. None of them survived. They all went extinct, right? And for various reasons, but they all died eventually. And so it's obvious the trajectory of any fiat currency, right? As Voltaire said, that the intrinsic value of money is always zero, of fiat currency, right? It will always revert back to its original value of zero, always, right? Because the government cannot create anything of value, right? Like pieces of paper and ink, they're not worth anything, but when they put them together, magically they have these economic value, but it's all contrived and it's all arbitrary, and it will always revert back to zero. There is no denying economic law, right? Just like there's no denying mathematical law and laws of physics and all that.
But Karl Marx said, oh, sorry.
So basically the guy researched basically about 775 different fiat currencies in history, and they all collapsed, they all went to zero, they all went extinct. So people research monetary history. You can start with Tom Woods, you can start with Prof. CJ. If you guys have any other suggestions for people, those are some great ways
Dollar
to start.
Vigilante is pretty good.
Dollar Vigilante. Creature from Jekyll Island. And a lot of things that Murray Rothbard talk, a lot of his books. What has government done to our money?
Yes.
Right. The case for the 100% gold dollar. There's and all he wrote a lot about various depressions, the Great Depression, the Panic of 1917, I think. So or 1907, I think. So yeah. So do your research, read books, educate yourselves, because ignorance of economics can be fatal. Most definitely, right?
Yes.
It is very dangerous to be ignorant, especially in the age of information, right? So with that, thanks a lot for listening. This has been the Seeds of Liberty podcast. Wishing everyone have a wonderful day. Take care.
Peace.
Peace.